Go ahead.
Yeah, this is the second episode that we are doing on the social media. In the first episode, we focused more on like what kind of societal influence that social media is having. Now it's we want to discuss about like what kind of personal influence, not our personal influence, like what kind of influence personally the viewers of this social media is having. Like, I want I more than social like society on societal level. I think social media is affecting more like more dangerously in the personal level. Like, I will refer to this guy named Jonathan Haidt, who is a psychologist. Uh, yeah, he's a psychologist in some reputed American university. He wrote a book named "A Coddling of American Mind," which basically documents like the influence of social media and mm, its effect on the teenage population of America. Like he documented like one of the dangerous trends where like the
Hmm.
occurrences of self harm,
Transgenderism, I think
transgenderism,
he,
and the
he he
occurrence
wrote
of
about
self
it.
harm in
True.
teenagers has like increased drastically, which can be like interpolated for every society. Like it's not like specific to America. You can see that in every country as well. Um, it doesn't matter which country it will go. Large, like, but it has a disproportionate effect on the female population rather than male. For example, let's consider even in reality, let's consider if you give a mobile to a boy, what he will do, he basically opens the video games and start playing the video games. And if you do the same thing to a girl, she will start taking photos of herself and posting it on social media and starting discussion on this thing. So females are more of a social being, and yeah, like getting mingling with others is a good thing in reality because we can see a lot of
Hmm.
kind of back and forth interaction with that person. Whereas if you go into a
Hmm.
social media, everyone is an anonymous person, and there is no repercussion to the kind of statements that they are making. So they
Hmm.
can
Hmm.
they can tell whatever they want, which affects boys much less than girls, which everyone will
I
accept as
think
the truth.
I think it's not about who is more social or who is more not more on social media, because I think there are way more boys on social media than girls. I think the issue has to do with physical like physique and perception of
Hmm.
that. Like women and girls in general are more insecure about their physicality than guys.
Guys,
Guys are more about, like, I'm fat, I'm short, I'm tall, this kind of insecurity. It doesn't have to do with fine points, like, spots on your face or
face
something like
or
that.
anything like that.
Yeah, so that way I think women and girls are in general, because this is something which I have, like, yeah, this I've seen this in my family also, like cousin sisters and friends and all. Yeah, but this kind of, like, I think it has become more of a generational thing. Like our generation, probably we were in our high school, or like we weren't
Yeah,
as
like you can
influenced.
see that effect even more in like the coming generations. Like if you see
Yeah.
the college going students now, they in like they cannot live without social media, which is very bad because it's like echo chamber. In social media, we construct echo chambers
Yes.
only. We
Yes,
don't
that is
construct
exactly what it is.
opinions of diverse guys.
I think Conan O'Brien said this in one of his like
And also,
podcasts or
like most of the
something,
people
that
go to social media to create echo chambers because they want to validate their position if they don't find it in real life.
also
Like
it is,
you can put any
yeah,
kind of crazy statement in social media and you will find some people who agree with you, which will make you
supportive of
happy.
it. Yes. Yes. Yeah. This, I think Conan O'Brien said this about, like, today it is possible that someone be born a certain way, think a certain way, live his life, work a job, where he's like his views and everything that he holds true are not at all challenged.
Hmm.
And he will die the same way.
Same way.
Like he'll listen to the same podcast, he'll watch the same shows, he'll read the same books that he agrees with, right?
Hmm.
And there is no contradiction and no, like, no place where he has to challenge his views. I think that has to do with the times, and that is something we have to live with. Like, so for example, for so many centuries, the only way of expressing ourselves, like writing,
Hmm.
basically, used to be on books. Then in a short span of 10 years or so, mass population moved to typing on, laptops, or then taking notes on tablets and so on.
Mm.
So what I'm trying to say is there was a lot of, like, the thing that existed about writing, like people used to focus on calligraphy or writing good handwriting, etc., etc. Like these days you'll find kids, or like people, basically they are like, people told me to focus on this, and this has no relevance in life right now, right? So a lot of these things existed because life was a certain way,
Mm.
but now it has drastically changed. Like for example, we learn to write a lot of other languages, Hindi or other regional languages. We learn to write it, but we never write it as an adult, right?
Mm.
We totally forget how to
Forget how
write
to
the,
write a
yeah,
native
we only
language.
write in English bare minimum, and that too, thank God, we're not doctors. That so
Uh,
our handwriting is at least legible, so someone can read
read it.
it. Read it. Yeah. So
Yeah, like
yeah, but I think
I
that
want
has to do.
to know like what is your position on like why there is so much of a drastic change between like what how the social media is affecting girls personally and boys personally, and you can see it in almost every platform. It's like Twitter, Instagram, Tinder, whatever. Like girls
Hmm.
always have a disproportionate effect, disproportionately affected by social media, and also like you. I'm telling you, I'm being a misogynist. So let's put this statement.
Just say
Never,
what you want to say. Don't label yourself. Ah,
never, almost you cannot like a girl who will not listen to a podcast for like 1 hour. If she is not
okay.
willing to her his or his her favorite person for 1 hour, what makes you think he will
Ah.
talk to you for 1 hour? Simple.
Interesting, interesting
If he's not if
extrapolation
she is
there.
not willing to talk with you for 1 hour, then
Nay,
I don't think
I
it will
don't think
stand.
that I don't think that is true, because see, people are capable of many things, right?
Mm.
Someone can be a serial killer and still be a good
Still,
guy,
uh,
diligent worker and sincere at his job,
see,
etc.
it's
But
something that makes me question the fundamental things. How can serial killer be a good guy? At least in someone's perspective.
people are able to compartmentalize, right? Like
Yeah, like
let's take the Nazis
see,
for example,
it's
right?
called like it's not amoral. Like it is kind of constructing their own morality. It's like an echo chamber only. In their own morality, he is a good guy. Then don't.
Me, I'm not talking about good guy like perception wise. I'm talking about you can be good or virtuous in certain deeds and
Hmm.
viceful in other
Other
deeds.
did so.
That's what I'm trying to say. Take the Nazis for example. Like you could find guys who were good at their job,
Hmm.
etc., etc. Like they were good family people. They would care about their kids and this and that. At the same time, they would go at work and abuse
Hmm.
people in concentration
Confusion.
camps, right? So people are able to compartmentalize. What I'm trying to say, like they're able to
I have.
disassociate.
Uh, okay, I have one
Uh,
experiment. Do you
uh,
think if social media was there in 1938, more people
uh,
would be pro-Nazi or against Nazis? What do you think? If there was a social
depends on
media?
the population, na.
No, no. Like let's say the same kind of
Like depends on the
infrastructure exists.
population, because see a lot of people don't get this. Like if you look at Nazi Germany for example, so Germans at that time were like the best of the best
Hmm.
in terms of whatever you take, science, literature, maths, whatever.
That
They
is
were the
also
best
very
of the best
bad
at the
because
time.
they focus more and more on quality only. They don't. I'll tell you, people who have
So,
Audi will understand like what is German over engineering.
okay. So yeah, it's easy to play God when you think that not just think, when you're the best that, whatever the time has to offer,
Hmm.
right? Like, for example, post that, like America has been the dominant in certain aspects,
Yeah.
and European countries, you have some like who dominate in a certain way. So yeah, like it's easy for them to develop, like to believe certain things that reinforces their belief that they are superior. Like
Hmm.
everyone has this need to feel superior than others, right? Everyone has this thing like I am better than everyone in this field.
Hmm.
Like you and I, everyone, we have this feeling. Not just like not like in a absolute sense, but in a relative sense. We know that if this comes, I'll be the one who'll be best at it, right? So everyone has this need to feel superior at something. So, like, yeah, so if you are really good at everything, it's very easy to have this, like, become this thing as a part of your ideology,
Mm.
right? This superiority feeling become part of your ideology in everything. Like, our race is better than this and that and whatever. So I don't necessarily think like I think still the German population would still be convinced of their superiority given the things
It's
of the
not just
time.
about superiority that I'm talking about. Most of the people, you see the American propaganda in today, right? Like, even though like we know some of it is propaganda, there is a large section of population on earth who is willing to go with America. Like similarly,
In what sense? Like, give me an example.
Yugoslavia, for that matter, in 1991.
Yugoslavia, where
Okay,
dismantled?
okay, okay, dismantle.
What?
That's because of the American intervention only. The America doesn't have right to intervene in the Yugoslavian internal conflict. Yet they intervened,
Okay.
like basically illegally, and split the Yugoslavia into Bosnia, Serbia, Herzegovina, and these kind of states.
Hmm.
But they claim it to be like, wherever America go, it will give freedom like that.
Okay.
Even
So
though people don't want it, for the most part.
kind of. Hold
Uh,
on for a second.
and
Yeah,
also
you were
for that
speaking of.
matter, there was another example in 1971 war. Like Americans know that the Pakistan army is killing Bangladeshis in Bangladesh. Yet
Hmm.
they don't want India to intervene in that, which they claim it as some kind of
Hmm.
geopolitical
See,
gymnastic.
the geopolitics of that time, I'm not sure like why. See, this I know that Pakistan was like in terms of armed forces, it was way superior than India because the reason it invested more in armed forces was because
It
uh,
is a military. Pakistan is
like
a military. It's not a country, so they have to
yeah,
choose.
yeah, yeah. Ari, but no, it's not about military. It's because like okay, the way you arm your forces is you think about the threats that you have.
Mm,
So for them, India and like it was very the fact that India existed and other nations existed close by.
will
They
create
they
some
they
paranoia.
had a need. They had a need to develop their
Mm,
armed forces.
I'm forces that way.
So anyway, what I'm saying is I am aware of that. I don't know what the geopolitics of that time were. Why US chose to support Pakistan and not India. You
No, they
know,
have to. No, India was neutral in the case of the Soviet, the First World and Second World
mm,
blocks,
mm, mm,
whereas Pakistan is actively supporting America. So it's an ally in the Cold War.
mm.
See,
And I
even
think
see,
all
even
that
1857, the Afghan British War happened because of the British fear that they will be having a common border with the Russian Empire if Russia occupies Afghanistan,
true.
which is not very
Also,
far from truth.
US had the intentions of like occupying Afghanistan, so probably that could be a
No,
reason. I mean,
overthrowing the communist
it's
government in the Afghanistan, they have a plan for that.
Afghanistan.
Yeah,
Yes, yes. No, but why
occupying.
they didn't support? Why they didn't support India at the time? Like, I'm not sure of the geopolitics of the time. Why the reason why they chose to support Pakistan and not a big country like India, big and
No,
diverse country
see,
like India?
there was an ideological shift in 1945 after the World War, because the Stalin and Maoist bloc, there are two blocks in the communist ideology as well. One was Stalinist, which was
Hmm.
kind of socialism in one country,
Hmm.
whereas the Maoists were more of an anti-imperialists.
Hmm.
But
Okay.
Stalin didn't support Mao till 1945 almost. Like he's not very interested in going into China. Although there was many Soviet embassies in China, they want to always make a truce between the Chiang Kai-shek regime and the Mao communist guerrilla army.
Hmm. Hmm.
So in
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
process, what happened in during the World War, Chiang Kai-shek took the brunt of the Japanese attack, which weakened the forces of the imperialist Chiang Kai-shek army.
mm,
Taking that as an advantage, Mao destroyed the Changasek army and pushed him into Taiwan, which is
mm.
present day Taiwan, and occupied the
Taiwan.
entire China and converted into communist regime. And then
Mm-hmm.
Stalin realized like, okay, there is also this thing like he thought like communist should be an anti-capitalist thing, but Mao proved that we can jump from direct imperialism to communism without having this capitalist kind of transition. That's why you
Mm,
see before 1945, all of the communists opposed the Nizam rule in Hyderabad,
mm.
and then there was an entire from top leadership to the bottom. There was an entire shift in the communist organization, and they bought all the people
Yeah.
who supported this anti-imperialist kind of thing, and they started opposing Indian forces and started supporting Nizam, telling that basically Nizam is a much lesser threat when compared to India for them
India. Okay.
to bring communist
No,
revolution.
but also, if you look at the basis of these like socialist and communist ideologies versus capitalist, it always has to do with elite and peasant behavior, like
Mm.
classism basically.
Mm.
So you have on one hand people who are already good at, let's say, academics or wealth making and these
It's,
kind of things.
it's like a false
Their interests
perception
are more
also.
of.
Like people
Hmm.
think that communists are like more of a liberal kind of people. Communists in opposition are very liberal. When they get into power, they are much more conservative than
But
any conservative society.
anyone in power behaves similarly, right?
Uh,
Anyone in power is very people innately are very selfish, and
no,
anyone in
anyone
power
in
will.
power. No, I specify that the communists in power are much more conservative because they don't have a stronghold. For example, let's say if there is a emperor king or god king, he has legitimacy from heaven, telling that he is the emperor.
Hmm.
But the communists don't have that
Okay,
legitimacy. They have to create that legitimacy. In order to create that, they create
okay.
conflict. See, let's say if there was a war going on.
Let's delve
Okay, okay. Let's
into
not
the
go into history.
this ideologies and.
Yeah, yeah, because I see a lot of online communists, right? Like it's they they are living in echo chamber. They don't expose themselves to some other kind of ideology. It's not you see in many
I
professions.
think first of all,
In
first
humanity,
of all, first of all, I
humanity.
think
Yeah.
First of all, I think the problem, like, first of all, no one should, like, it's one thing to study ideologies, to understand why is it that people get influenced a certain way, or like, why is it that you and I are vulnerable to like, to become extremists, in some, like, basically, unwillingness or like cynical in holding certain values and not willing to change those values, right? I
Mm.
think that's the only reason why we should study ideologies. But as such, I don't think anyone should behave like believe in any ideology.
Yeah.
The reason,
See,
the reason,
what's the
the
difference
reason I
between
say this
religion
is
and
because
ideology if you start believing in it?
the reason I think that is because see, like there's a difference between idea, activism, and ideology, right?
Mm.
Activism, like idea, can be a very generic, like, and very limited in its scope.
Mm.
My internet, okay. Idea is very limited in its scope, right? And activism has to do with, say, let's take feminism for example. So
Mm.
activism is you're doing proactively, you're taking measures to, increase the representation of women in public places or whatever,
Mm.
to positions of power. And then there is about ideology. So ideology is basically you're trying to explain everything in terms of a set of ideas. Why do we have this problem? Because men did this, because
Mm.
there is a patriarchy, right? You're not getting into the, like, basically using this as a discussion to understand it's quite possible the other side also has some issues, which is why this thing exists in the first place,
Mm.
right? Let's say a lot of social rules and regulations that are established, they were established for a certain reason, right?
Mm.
So it doesn't necessarily have to be bound by your ideology. That is why also, I think one of the reasons why a lot of people stick to ideology or religion in general, like why people become religious fanatics, a lot of people become religious fanatics, is it's quite easy.
Mm.
Like,
You have a lot
everyone,
of
like,
faith that will defend you.
yeah, I mean, you don't have to work through a lot of emotions. Like, for example, what I hold true today, tomorrow could be completely wrong. And I
Wrong.
have to accept that. Okay, I'm completely wrong. But then you have a set of like an ideology, basically, it explains everything. So
Hmm.
you don't have to worry about, challenging yourself. Ki maybe the view that I hold is different and etc. etc. And I think the elements of elements of ideological aspects can be seen on social media also. Like you will see people gravitating towards certain people, certain um, you know, social media influencers and so on
Yeah,
in
because
this
we are
regard.
saying that like I don't know about Chaitanya, but I am at one point is such kind of person only.
Uh,
Like who
but
like
it, I think, I think you made the effort to challenge yourself and try to understand,
yeah, sometimes you'll get bored listening to the same kind of argument and you want to listen to the opposite one. Just for fun. Then you will understand like what are the holes in your argument.
argument. Yeah, yeah. That is why I think, yeah, like it's more of a Pandora's box. And since we started the discussion with like how does influence personal lives, can you think of any like people in your lives or like people that you know of who have been
Yeah,
significantly affected?
like it's not just about ideology. Like personally, I've seen so many boys and girls who have this kind of anxiety to look good and to dress certain way,
Hmm.
and who are afraid of taking photos when they are, have little kind of,
Hmm.
what you call
True.
uh,
Yes. Yes.
mark or something on their faces and this kind of things. Like it is making them more and more less confident. Like their confidence depends on the likes they are getting, the comments they are getting, and these kind of things. I was like, and I have this problem with the people who say I am affected by likes and comments. Like switch it off. Like what is stopping from, like, don't see, like, who is stopping you from seeing that? Like now, so no one is
Also,
forcing.
also, have you seen this? Like, I've seen a lot of people who do this. They take a photo, group photo,
Hmm.
and in the photo, it's only them who looks good. The
Looks
other
good,
people are looking like they don't necessarily care about how everyone else is looking, right?
yeah.
Like I've seen this kind of thing also in practice where people they will click 4 or 5 photos, and if you look at like let's say one of the photos where they'll be like they'll frown, "Ki, okay, I don't look good in this," and you
Hmm.
look, it looks like a decent photo, but they will not choose that. They'll choose like the photo in which they themselves look good.
Look good,
They
and
don't
their
care about
family
how
look
everyone else looks.
look good.
Yeah, I have been like someone in my family. Basically, they took a group photo, and like I think in one of the photos, my like I did not look good
Yeah,
basically.
also like I have a
So
problem with people who take.
listen. So some posted that like cousin sister she posted that, and yeah, some random guy like mutual friend of hers maybe. He made a mockery of me like how
Hmm.
who is this guy, how is he looking, blah blah blah. And then my parents, because they're also on social media, said that they got into it, and yeah,
Fan
it
wars.
became like a, yeah, kind of correlate situation. Yeah.
uh,
Anyway, so yeah, like it does affect personal life. It does affect personal lives. I think the thing that you said now, like my observation is this has become more of the
it's
thing
not
of the
just about
past.
like kind of like person. It has a very much effect on their daily life also. Like
Okay, how?
I just call my friends and they just want, they don't even want to switch on their camera because they look ugly. They think they look ugly. I was like, see, I don't care whether you look ugly or not. Just switch on the camera. They don't.
Hmm. I
It's kind
think
of they
social
become
media
insecure.
has social media and the advent of like how things have been in the past years. People have, I mean, there has been development in both ways, like good or bad.
Hmm.
People are more aware about how they look, right? And what was, let's say, the level of fitness which was considered to be okay is now considered fat and
That
obese.
see that see that is having so much
That,
negative effects on boys. Like people don't understand. Like people who take these protein powders and these kind of things. You see like why you see Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? He's looking
uh,
healthy now. Like you see most of the
hmm.
bodybuilders, they are dying at the age of 30 or 35. Why? It's like crazy.
Yeah, because you're consuming foreign products, like things that you did not grow up consuming,
Hmm.
and all of a sudden you're consuming it in huge doses.
And it's like
See,
a
I think also,
abnormal structures of bodies. Like everyone should be having 8 packs and chest should be this much. Like it's not possible. Like you just have to be fit. That's it. You should be able to do the work, not show your body.
but but also I think it also reflects like is the mass belief, right?
Mm.
Like the masses don't necessarily
It
care
is more
about.
of a what you call symbiotic, like uh, in social media they project one kind of body as the perfect body, and we should get that way, and that became a standard for everyone,
Okay.
which is
No, I think the good there is good and bad. Like the good thing is people have become more physically aware of, like, let's say for example fooding, for example, right?
mm,
So Indians historically, we have not been good with foods. Our foods are mostly carbohydrate heavy, right?
mm,
So a lot of these stereotypes that existed about Indian people, like, poor genetics or this and that, etc., looks, for example, they
mm,
had to do with the kind of food they consume.
Ajima.
Now you're seeing people who have substituted their food, not necessarily that they have totally given up the food that they're consuming. They've
Mm,
substituted it with them. They started consuming more protein. People who are vegetarian, they've started taking more plant protein, etc.
mm,
So you start to, like, physically they look better. They look more presentable, let's say. So I think that is a good thing that has happened because of social media. And a lot of people have personally benefited off of it. People have realized, like, the physicality doesn't have to do being born a certain way,
mm.
right?
Also, like
Like,
I go to gym, right? Like I see a lot of guys who have considerably much larger muscles than me, and they lift much lighter weights. I was like, with that muscles, you should be some kind of Hulk, but you're looking like a baby, like you're lifting the weights of a baby. I am also like surprised at like how by lifting those weights they got that body.
it's also personal preference, I think. Like I during my BTech days also, I knew a few friends who had good body, like
Mm,
not necessarily muscular, but they look good. But they weren't, like, they wanted to have like a muscular body built or something,
mm,
right? And like, for me, ideal is like a lean and mean figure, right?
mm.
Like someone like Bruce Lee, who started off this
Start
whole
off.
lean and mean thing,
Uh,
that you don't necessarily have bulky to be strong, right? So I see someone like, let's say, Virat Kohli physique, or like Maxwell, Glenn
mm.
Maxwell physique, where you are fit enough to do thing, at the same time, like, you have
Just
just enough muscle.
you just have to be fit
But a
enough to
lot
do things. That's it. Muscle are thing
that's a
that
very
is secondary.
but the bias there is your perception of life is doing things.
Mm.
You do realize that for a lot of people, it's not about doing things, it's
It's
about
about
like
how you look
looking a
to others.
certain,
That
yeah,
is
how
because
you
of
look
social
at a.
media. That insecurity I'm telling is because of the social
No,
media.
I don't think it's because of that. See, people have also historically been the same. It's just that because of social media, it's easier for you to reinforce that habit. Like, because you see yourself how you look, right?
Mm.
How your friends look, how your so and so look. Because of that, it's easy to reinforce the idea, like, I should not eat this, I should do this, I should do that, right?
Mm.
Like, yeah, obviously the biggest thing is, okay, like you said about people dying early, right? Because
Mm.
consuming protein and this, that. I think it has more to do with copycat behavior.
Mm.
Like, whether we like to accept it or not, India, or like the whole, like, majority of Asian population, we still blindly copy Western influence, right? We
For
don't
Western,
necessarily,
the
because
people who are watching in Western kind of diet, protein is the important. Meat is the important thing. The rest are secondary.
hmm,
For us, the meat is secondary. The rest are
I
important
don't
things.
see. Again, the thing you said, na, meat. The problem isn't that. The problem, see, protein. The food that we consume is carbohydrate heavy, so we look a
Mm.
certain way,
Certain,
right?
yeah.
Either people look completely malnourished, or like they look completely obese,
Okay, so,
right? But the fact that you know that, okay, you should start taking protein, you should start eating this, that, whatever, you should start consuming fibers. But once you start doing that, you start making adjustments to your, like, instead of copying basically what someone else is eating, you
mm.
start including those resources in your own, you know, uh, what do you say, cuisine,
Lifestyle.
basically. Cuisine. You start using those ingredients, and the thing is, people don't take pride in that. That's the
Mm.
issue. This is something which I have been guilty of as well. Like, when you growing up, you have certain teachers, and you think, okay, uh, there is no IIT student that this guy has produced. There is no someone who's gone abroad that this guy taught.
Mm.
But it's not necessary. If a teacher teaches you well, it's on you to carry on that legacy, basically carry on those values, and um, let's say if you are born a privileged family compared to your teachers or someone else, basically. So
Mm,
it's up to you to take that, grasp that, and amplify it so that other people can benefit from it, whether it is from your work or from your teachings or whatever, right? So yeah, like I said, like it's more of a copycat behavior, that is the issue. And if you argue against it, if you tell people, okay, dude, I think you're just blindly imitating, they'll be like, no, I know better. Who are you to tell me?
mm,
Because they see like, okay, this guy is doing, I'm seeing this on YouTube, I'm doing this, then definitely I'm doing it right,
mm.
right? Like the thing that we're talking about, you have to be a certain kind of a nerd to understand
Yeah,
this.
no.
To
Yeah,
understand basically,
I want to ask you one thing. Like seeing the trend, right? The effect that
yeah,
social media having on our personal life. How do you think the trend will be going in like coming 5 or 10 years?
I think it'll die down in a few years. That is true for anything in life. Like you will be worried about, okay, this is so bad, this is happening, that is happening, and then something else will replace it, basically.
I don't
Yeah.
think so. Like this will be having a lot of effect, like irreparable, I guess, because they are
No, I think
touching.
like you see there are, like, for example, social media or like internet in general did not wasn't censored at all,
Mm,
like, right? These days you'll see more censorship on internet. You cannot say die, kill, let's say. They'll use unalive, right? They
mm,
come up these with these words as if the using the word will make something,
it
better,
will not change the
basically.
meaning.
Yeah. So I think after there will be a certain point where you'll see people turning to alternative mediums, whether it is reading books or reading novels or something else, basically. Then this thing will die down, I think. And also, like this whole social media influencer thing, in my view, it's like a bubble. And
World will burst someday.
yeah, the bubble will burst someday. People will realize that, like people will
But
basically
I
get
don't
bored by
understand like
watching.
how it is going to burst.
How is it going to burst?
I don't even have a scenario like how, and also like even after the burst, the harmful effect that will it will have.
I think the advent of AI is a good example. Like these days you have full
Yeah,
accounts
but how do
which
you
are
know
made.
like it will decrease the influence? Like let's say that fitness thing that we said, no? AI generating AI images like even will give much more false impression, right?
No, I'm
Possibility.
not
There's a
saying that.
possibility.
I'm saying you have like proper accounts made on people who do not exist. Like the whole account
Mm,
is AI based.
AI based.
The character itself is AI based, right? So one way it can happen is a few years later you will find out like whatever I'm consuming doesn't exist. Like the person or the
Person
thing that
doesn't
is talking
exist.
about, none of it exists. So then there will be like this thing of de-digitization. Like you
Uh,
hear people doing this, that they'll shut off their phones and
Phones and
laptops and
everything.
everything, and they'll go to a summer camp or something for a week or
Mm,
so, and they'll
mm.
be like, oh, this is the best thing I've had in
But
my
that
life or
is
something.
more of an escapism, right? Like they are not solving the
No,
problem.
not
They just
as
are escaping from the problem.
not escapism. I think see, also, like, while we're assessing what is good or bad in life, we are also living our lives, right? 5 years later, these things will not be of concern to us, let's say.
For
We'll
us,
have
it will
other
not be
things of
concerned,
concern.
but I'm thinking about like generations, Nick.
This is where generation gap comes, right? I already feel like I already sense there's a generation between
Generation gap,
me and,
definitely.
yes.
Even I sense that like people
So
who passed out on 2020 and us, like we feel like there is generation gap already. Their kind of
uh,
humor is different. Their kind of interests are different.
mm, the way they consume content, for us, studying used to be sit down, study everything, blah blah blah,
Mm.
right? Now it's like learning through jokes and comedy and this and
Comedies
that.
and this.
But also, I don't necessarily think like, see, as long as there are quality people in everything, uh, nobody will the system, right? Because there are only so many, like, you don't need the entire population to have a certain view, or to have a certain level of development.
Mm.
As long as there are enough people who are above the development and who are good enough to handle the jobs, like serious jobs, these things won't be a problem, I think.
Mm.
The problem I had, like I said, was that these things are becoming mainstream, and more people are appreciating that, right? They're questioning the merit of working hard or studying or this and that. Like I always felt this way that studying has nothing to do with money. Like these are two different axes, and it's possible that they intersect somewhere. You can, like for example, for doing a certain work, it's quite possible that you could have a very simple thing that you're doing to make a lot of money.
Mm.
And it's also sometimes that sometimes you have to do a lot of work to solve a small problem. So I don't know where I was going with that. But yeah, die
Yeah,
down. Yeah.
yeah. With this, like, we have 3 minutes almost. With this, we
Yeah.
want to conclude our rant on social
Conclude.
media. But
Yeah,
we
yeah, yeah.
didn't put everything in our mind into this. There is a lot of things, but it will go more and more into like specifics rather than generic kind of thinking. Yeah, like see, at least for me, I think there is disproportionate effect on females when compared to males by social media. I don't think it will
I
go
don't think
down.
so. I don't think so. I think, nah. I mean, boys and girls, every affected in a different way. I don't think women are necessarily affected more. I think the reason you think so is because like this thing has been taught to us again and again that women are more social and more family oriented and
No,
that.
you see statistics, right? Like how many like
Statistics are always biased, na? They always select those certain like. Okay, my problem with quoting statistics and psychological studies, etc., is there is always a confirmation bias. You
hmm,
have a certain idea in mind and you go with that. You test to prove that theory, basically,
hmm,
prove or disprove, basically. You don't necessarily see like how does it correlate with other things, etc. See, I'm not disagreeing that women aren't suffering because of this. I'm just saying that yeah, everyone is suffering in a certain way. Also, I think one reason why we don't like this is because we feel like we have a lack of control over these things, right?
yeah.
Like us, our generation, people of our generation, we don't have a good understanding and control of these things. I think that is why it also bothers us because we see the negative side of it, but we don't see the positive. Like how is it adding any value to it?
Hmm,
Because we already have like a this is how you get value. Let's say if you want to get good at studies, if you want to get good at science, for example. So I would rather go and read a book. I would solve these problems, do this, do that. I won't use social media for that. I won't use YouTube much for that.
hmm,
I'll use YouTube for, let's say, watching tutorials or like some conference videos or something. But barring that, I will not resort to it for studying basic stuff.
hmm,
But a lot of these days, they resort to, let's say, they will not solve the maths problem. They'll look up Google, they'll ask ChatGPT to solve it for them. Maybe there is some rationale to learning from it. Maybe they'll be able to solve some problems which we aren't able. But yeah, I think, hope so. Hope it is doing something good.
hmm.
And I think we should trust the people in like governing places to if it does harm people in a certain way, then the people in governing bodies to pass some regulations to restrict that.
Yeah, with this we conclude it. Like the time is also. Mm,
Okay.
yeah,
Until next time,
time. Bye.
live long and prosper. Bye.
Bye.